Up, bud?
Hey, how's it going, bud? For those of you that don't know, my name is Hike Shadow,
And I'm Alex.
and we're both originally from Boston, now currently residing within the city limits of Cincinnati, Ohio, and we're just gonna run a podcast here, talk about life in general and what it's like growing up in New England, specifically the Boston area, and then uprooting that life and moving to the Midwest. Does that seem
While
accurate to
working
you,
in
sir?
sports.
Yes, while working in professional athletics, as that is the only background we have, to my knowledge. No college or youth athletics, correct? As far as working, not playing, we'll get into that.
Uh,
Don't worry.
yeah, I've interned collegiately, but that's about it.
You did intern collegiately. Well, look at you being well versed in athletics.
I'd say I'm well versed in a lot of things,
I
but sports tends to be one of them.
I wouldn't say I'm well versed in anything, sir.
I'm in sports, but that's really about it.
Oh yeah, fair warning. We will drop our R's, and it's not ironic. It's legit because that's just who we are. It is my character by any means, in fact. It is my
All right.
character by any means, in fact, sir. You you underestimate me, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I was gonna make a Star Wars reference, but I just forgot the whole reference.
You underestimate my power in my new
Uh,
empire.
that you brought peace and justice to.
I brought peace and justice to my new empire, known as the city of Cincinnati. And
Oh man, that's a bold claim. I think
that's
Skyline called dibs on that one.
I think Skyline's the only thing that brings peace and justice to this area. They are the sponsor of all the professional and minor professional sports teams in the city and
You know a thing or
colleges.
two about that.
I know a thing or two about a thing or two.
Just go on Jeopardy at this point, kid. Like
I,
honestly.
you know, let's talk about that for a second then. So, the year is 2022. I'm applying for jobs. I really hate my current job. I took the Jeopardy test. I did not do well.
You're not wicked smart, kid, huh?
No, I'm smart. Who won the Stanley Cup in 22, Alex?
That was the Lightning, was it not?
That was not.
Ah, okay.
Right? The Lightning didn't do three in a row.
They went to three in a row. I don't think they won three in a row. They won the COVID Cup, didn't they?
Yeah, they have the COVID Cup and the 21 Cup.
They made it to the 22 Cup, but I think they lost to.
Yes, that's the Avalanche's Cup. That's what I
okay,
thought.
there we go. Yep, all right.
Because you had the Avalanche, and then last year you had Vegas. And then this year you have the Dallas Stars or the Florida Panthers.
I'm taking the Dallas Stars in 7.
I'm taking the you know what? We'll get right into sports then here. I'm gonna say Florida is gonna win in 6. Dallas is gonna win in 6. I think Edmonton will win one game in that series, and then Dallas will lose one game in that series. So Edmonton will have 2 wins, but only one of them will be Edmonton won. I think it's very similar to how that Vancouver series finished up last night. Or 2 days ago at this point. It all blends together. As a Canucks fan, that hits home pretty hard. So
I don't want to comment on the Florida Panthers as a Bruins fan. 2 years in a row, this is enough brutality for my life.
I think the Panthers win the cup though. I think they win in 6. I think they are the better team. I think Edmonton is going to be just physical enough, and I think Florida is the most physical team in the league. So it makes total sense that Florida could take that cup home.
I don't dispute that. I just can't go against Tyler Seguin for whatever reason.
I
Probably because I still want him to be a Bruin.
I love
At
Tyler
that
Seguin.
point, that's just a New England specialty is that we just deal in absolutes, and I think some people don't like that.
Oh, I think that's a really big thing about New England in general, that you don't understand. You don't know. You don't understand. You don't know anything, but we're just very matter of fact, absolute back home. And I think living out here in the Midwest for about 2 years now, I've noticed there's a lot less dealing in absolutes. Would you kind of agree with that take?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but also I just realize I use 25 letters of the alphabet a lot of the time now. I can't live with that half the time. You know what I mean?
25.
I drop my R's a lot now.
Oh,
Way more than I used to.
That's another thing. I think I'll talk about being home and like, or I'll go home for like vacation or something to visit my mom, to just like to be at home, or I'll watch TV or like local news from home because I want to know what's happening at my parents' house. Like at the end of the day, I want to know what's happening. And all of a sudden, I'll be talking and I'll be like, "Hey man, like where's the bubbler?" And people look at me like, "Excuse me? Yeah, where's the bubbler?"
Extra emphasis on that AH there.
Oh,
That's the one thing
and
my favorite thing about it is that I'll just do that and not be conscious about it. I'll just do it because I'm used to doing it. If that makes sense.
no, I get that, and I think I'll say things like that, and people will be like the water fountain, and I'm like, first of all, what's a water fountain? That's what birds drink out of, or have the little babies, or the turtle statue in Worcester.
No, that's our former place of work too.
That's where we met.
That's how this dynamic duo became a dynamic duo. Is the city of Worcester, Massachusetts.
We met by the turtle statue, and that's not even like a falsehood. We worked right outside that park because that statue's by City Hall in downtown Worcester.
See how we just add extra letters to this, man?
Oh, yeah.
We add extra letters, but also get rid of letters at the same time. And that's how I try to explain it. But there's people that still, like, I could be at work, right? And I'm wearing Red Sox stuff, Celtics, whatever. Oh, are you from there? I'm like, yeah. Can you say car for me? I'm like, say what? Car. I'm like, I give into it, but sometimes it's just that subconscious thing of like being in a new place, and I just explain, oh, you're not from here, are you? No, I'm from Massachusetts. Oh, where about? Growing up near Lexington and Concord, you know, the forefront of the American Revolution.
Or as I call it, home.
We call it the homeland. We call it the motherland. Whatever you want to call it, we call it that. People don't seem to know where that is, and we're from the two towns that are right next to it.
Yep, I always tell people I'm from Concord. I'm not gonna lie.
I get the
and I'll drill down. And I've had this conversation, especially with other coworkers that have either been to New England, from New England. In general, people I met from New England, been to New England, or spent a lot of time in New England. And I'll be like, they're like, all right, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from Massachusetts. They're like, what part? I'm like, oh, I'm from Eastern Mass, kind of near Boston. And they're like, you don't sound like you're from Boston. I was like, well, I grew up 26 miles west of the city. And they're like, what do you mean? Because, again, if I go 26 miles west of downtown Cincinnati, I think you're probably in Indiana, would be my guess. But people would still consider that the greater Cincinnati area, right? I'm like, well, I'm from Metro West Boston. Like, that makes sense. And then they're like, whereabouts? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Concord. And they're like, I've heard about that, but I have no clue where that is. And I was like, drop a pin on Boston. Go 25 miles west. Don't do the San Diego Strike Force thing last year, or 2 years ago now, where Worcester is 40 miles east of Boston. That puts you in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, for those of you that are not very good at geography.
I know I'm not.
I'm not either. I'm awful at geography.
You know what? I've been out in the greater Ohio's for about a year now, you can call it.
Yeah, probably.
I like how a lot of towns out here are pronounced exactly as they're spelled phonetically.
Do you know
and
how
we
much
don't have that luxury. Our parents don't have that luxury.
Honestly, that bothers me. Like, it actually bothers me. Like,
it does bother me to the point where I'm like, are you sure you're supposed that AH is supposed to be a UH or what, or that HAM is supposed to be a like, are your phonetics like all the way there?
Imagine speaking the language and it actually being the language. We don't have that luxury back home.
No, not at all.
You have Billerica, which is spelled what? Billerica. I think if you actually were to spell it, can't spell Billerica, but I can look at the word and I'm like, oh, that's Billerica. Lemonsta.
Well, I'm gonna go Peabody. That's probably the one I get people with all the time out
Except
here. Is
that's
Peabody.
that's like the simplest though. It's spelled P body. So like Peabody makes sense.
You'll be surprised how many people like disagree with me about that. I think it makes perfect sense. Like, no, where did you getting these extra letters from? Like, it's right there in front of you. It's just like
damn funny, yeah.
P buddy.
Yep.
You know, one two,
I can't.
1 and 2 makes 3. You know. Mm-hmm.
I'm also a big fan of Worcester and Dorchester.
Dorchester's always a good one.
Yeah.
Anything where you can slide the accent in there is always a fun time out here.
Dorchester as a city name is a fun one, but they're spelt the exact same. Worcester and Dorchester are spelt the same way, but we don't call it Duster. That was a take of another one of our former coworkers that he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to Duster," and I was like, "Huh?" And he said it as a joke because obviously everyone knows how to say Dorchester.
And I think really how I try to explain the whole Boston accent thing to people is that if you don't live within maybe like a 10-mile radius from the epicenter of Boston, you're not going to get it. And once you hit mile 11 onward, like your parents have to move out and settle where we grew up, and then maybe you'll get a slight tinge of it. Otherwise, it's just not a thing.
So I'll disagree a little bit. My mom has a really thick one. She also grew up in the same hometown as you. I think it's a generational thing. I think part of it is we grew up watching more national media, in general, and so we shape our voice like the people we hear on we see on TV, and everything. So like you and I have much more of a normal cadence. We also both wound up in some level of production. At some point, I was in TV and radio through middle school, through high school, and then into college. So I kind of really flushed the Boston accent. But like, at least for me, when I get really excited about something, when I've been drinking, because I am of legal age, and I do enjoy a beverage from time to time, and if I'm just angry, like if my emotions get out of whack in any way, shape, or form, I do drop my R's pretty heavy. My girlfriend will point that out. She'll be like, I'll come home from the bar like on a Friday night during the season, or a Saturday night, whenever the weekend is actually for me, and I'll come home and I'll be talking to her, and I'll be like, yeah, I was down at the bar and like all that shit, and she's like, you've been drinking, haven't you? I was like, yeah, I only had a couple though, and she's like, Mike, your R's are gone, and I was like, well, I should probably go fucking find them there.
That's the thing is like I've noticed my cadence with it is more prevalent out here versus back home. Because I think whenever I'm back home, I just kind of ignore it. I just don't. I kind of get this weird thing where like I don't use it as much. But like when I'm out here, like I just kind of get. I always tell people I get lazy when I speak, but sometimes it just kind of slips out. Like it doesn't like I'm not trying to use it, but it'll just randomly just pop out of there.
No, I agree. I think there's also some level where the thickest accents we do here, and this is going to be kind of an asshole, kind of a hot take. I think the thickest Boston accents we typically hear, it's not lawyers, doctors that you're hearing it. It's like it's literally the garbage men, like in downtown. The townies and garbage men, and like the people that collect your trash, garbage men, not garbage people. I feel like that's two very different things, and we're not going to get into garbage people.
Nah.
At least I hope not. And those accents just, I think mentally, because of the jobs. Now, I'm not attacking intelligence of anyone ever, because honestly, most people are smarter than me. Like, and I know that. I may have 2 pieces of paper that claim I'm smart, but I'm pretty dumb, and I know that. But my point is, I think we subconsciously said, well, this accent is tied to those kind of more like blue-collar jobs, right? And so, like, that's another reason we mentally flush it away when we live at home. but then, we've come out here to Ohio. We've been here for like a year or longer. I'm working on 2 at this point. I'm at a year and a half, almost 2 years here, and at that point, I let my R's fall a little bit, and I do what I can, and it's just kind of comforts me about reminding like what it was like at home, how much I enjoy it, how much I miss home. I do. I miss home every day, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss it. At least like general like New England things.
Yeah, and I feel like I was one of those people that just had to get out of there. I feel like just around the people we grew up with, I think so many people wanted to stay. I'm not trying to knock that. It's just like that. Just I don't fall in that group of people that wants to stay in one place for 50 years or whatever.
I agree 100%, and I think that was another kind of point. I remember when I applied for my job that moved me out here. I was frantic. Like I got offered the job. I frantically called my uncles who both have moved from New England, and like I was like, I don't know, what should I do? Like I need advice because I think it's a really big scary thing to make that sort of jump. And
Yeah,
both my uncles said the same thing. They're like, dude, do it for a year. You may love being out. And they both told me, they're like, my mom's house, which unfortunately is no longer there. The house where they grew up is no longer there. I grew up a little bit in that house too. But they said that's always going to be my home. Like, one of my uncles lives in California, the other lives in North Carolina. They're like, I live here, but my home will always be Acton, Massachusetts. And that kind of was the thing that really helped me feel good about myself and like my move.
yeah. At least in my spot, I already had family out here, so it kind of made things a lot easier. Just to like, I didn't just drop into a new place by myself. Like I was never gonna be.
Oh, I did. I
Like alone,
absolutely
so to
just
speak.
sent it.
I mean, I think your situation kind of worked out in a way that you got on your feet running, and you got running pretty quick.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you
I
didn't
wound
just
up.
wait around.
I moved to Cincinnati, and we had our first game less than 48 hours after I was in the city. So
Yeah,
I lived in an Airbnb for a month and a half. I didn't actually have a house, like a house, home, apartment, whatever you want to call it. I didn't have a place to live. I was just friggin' winging it. And I remember probably one of my first 2-3 weeks, I said something, and it was the first time I really had the ability to like really get to meet my coworkers and everything. And we were sitting in the office. It was finally a little bit slow. Like, obviously, the beginning of a season's never slow, as you know. But there was a little bit of a break, and I said something, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it was wicked." And then, like, first of all, apparently people don't use wicked to describe it as greatly good. Like wicked is like you have a salad, right? Like, and you put bacon bits on it. Wicked is like the bacon bits. The salad itself is good, right? But when you add bacon bits to the salad, it's wicked good.
yeah.
It's
Wicked's kind of like one of those words you just use.
it's
It's like a
flavoring.
filler word, but it also like
It's
in Philly they say John a lot just for anything.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of one of those filler words that has no specific context to it. It just kind of fits in.
Yeah, and
Like
it's
it's like wicked good. There's a
and
lot of other applications for it for where we're from, but I think when I say wicked, that's kind of where the accent comes out more. It's not
yeah,
even on like a AR sound. It's more on just like wicked or whatever.
yeah.
But
I'll use the word wicked, and then for the next few minutes, like because we're doing this podcast currently, I subconsciously am not letting the R's drop. I'm forcing myself not to let the R's drop, but like more often than not, I'll be sitting there or I'll be in the office or something. I'll be talking to coworkers, and I'll be like, "Oh man, like that was wicked fucking good," and they're like, dude, you just sound like you're from Boston. I'm like, well, I did tell you I grew up there. Like, for lack of a better term, I grew up in Boston.
So like, I think that's Boston has become like you and I don't claim to be from the city proper.
God,
So
no.
I think we try to explain it. I think I've kind of gone off. I just kind of don't really explain it anymore. I just kind of say I'm from that area. You know,
Yeah.
if I pinpoint a specific town, you're gonna have no clue where it is.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
again, using the Cincinnati, because that's the current city we reside in, 275, right? The loop around 275. You're considered from Cincinnati if you live inside 275, right? Regardless if it's Indiana or Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or Ohio. You're in that bubble, you're considered you live in Cincinnati. If we were to take that bubble and stretch it out, go back home, go to Boston, that's 495. We both grew up east of 495, so we grew up in the 495 loop, so we grew up in Metro West Boston.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I'll describe it, and that's the most from Boston I'll ever get. Like, especially when I'm the farther from the city of Boston I am, the more I use that metric. Like, when I talk to people from New York City, not really. Like, I'll use it to kind of help you pinpoint where I'm from, and then once you understand where I'm from, then I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not actually from Boston, but for mental purposes, I'm from Boston.
I think the more vague we are about kind of pinpointing it, the easier. I've noticed the vaguer I am about it, the easier it is to explain, and kind of like moves on. It kind of moves on from that conversation.
Yeah, I think people get bored. Like, if you want me to be honest.
Yeah, because I'll end up talking to people just randomly, like, hey, they see that I'm wearing a Celtics shirt or a Red Sox shirt or whatever. But, hey, are you from Boston? Yeah, I grew up about 30 miles outside. And then, oh, we grew up in this town. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know where you're at. I know where that is vaguely.
Exactly.
I used to work down by.
Yeah, exactly.
I pinpoint based on like landmarks too. I don't even pinpoint on town names sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, like, if you threw a town at me, could I more than likely get it on the map correctly in the state of Massachusetts or within 2 towns of that cities or towns of that actual location? Honestly, yeah, I probably could. But because I generally know, like, if someone's like, oh, I'm from Salem, I'm like, all right, so that's North Shore. You got Peabody, you got Lynn, you got Linfield.
Wakefield up there?
Wakefield's up that way, yeah.
Marshfield's up there, I think.
And I thought Marshfield was down.
I don't even know the geography of my own home state, and that needs to be addressed, I think.
Well, we'll give you a geography test at some point. I'll give you a blank map and have you name all 351 cities and towns. For last week in sports, for reference, today is the 22nd of May, 2024. So last week in sports will be the last week leading up until last night. So if something wild and crazy happens tonight or Thursday, that'll be on next week's Last Week in Sports because it's not last week yet. It's quite literally the last 7 days. Someone's going to fry me otherwise. That's why I had to be very literal with my take.
So, where do you want to start?
Let's start with... You can start with basketball because, like, 4 people in the world care about that sport.
Oh, the Celtics scrapped away with a Game 1 win. Didn't really... The way they're playing, I thought they were going to throw that game away in the 4th because Indiana just kept finding a way to respond every single time down the floor. And the fact they had to go to overtime to settle that, I'm not surprised. My original view was Celtics in 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced they'll go 6, maybe 7 if the Celtics just have a game where they don't show up. Because Indiana's just going to run the floor, and the Celtics got to slow it down. They're better when they slow down, more so than playing quick.
That's fair, and I mean, I think, again, I don't watch basketball, but I will say I think it's kind of cool seeing the Pacers good again, first of all, because they were awful for a long time.
Yeah, the Larry Bird era wasn't their best era of Pacer basketball. But
But at the end of the day,
yeah,
we roll heavy and hot, and we do what we can do.
I mean,
Um,
I'm still going to be a townie when it comes to the Celtics, so I'll be obnoxious about them winning until they
I'll tell
actually
you,
win.
there's legitimately one, and we're up to one. I know, right? Wow, kids from Boston doesn't like Boston sports teams. Um, I I actually have exactly one Boston sports team I support. Boston sports team. They play in Lowell.
Oh, the Massachusetts Pirates.
N- no, actually, Green Bay Blizzard have always been my arena football team. I will say I respect the players. I respect the staff. I respect everything about the Pirates. But like at the end of the day, I was playing arena football, Road to Glory in 2006. I picked the Green Bay Blizzard then. We're riding with it, and that's
Until the team in Indy shows up and then we
oh
just
oh
full
um
hog support them.
the Green Bay Blizzard will always be near and dear to my heart. But I'll go full force Fisher's Freight. Also kind of a sick name. I'm not gonna lie. But no, it's they do share a building though. PWHL's Boston team. I've been really behind them all year. I didn't get to watch last night's game, which they unfortunately lost 3-0, making this the Walter Cup final 1-1 with Minnesota. Because I had a prior engagement that I had to get to, and I was not home until after the game ended. So I did miss the game, but I'm enjoying watching it. The crowds in Lowell look awesome. It's great for the Tonga Center getting extra hockey. I remember growing up going to Lock Monsters games there, and thinking like minor hockey is cool. Fast forward like 20 years, bro, I'm working in it. So I think it's great that women and girls have a team that's not only successful on the ice, but successful at drawing crowds. Like those crowds, like again, they're gonna be smaller because it is women's sports, and I'm not being a jerk. It's just they don't have the same popularity that the NHL has. That's why we've had multiple leagues fail. Did I go to a couple Boston Pride games when they had when that women's hockey league was around and they were playing out in the Warrior? I did. Was it harder for me to get there than it is for me to get to Lowell? Also, yes. But I enjoyed it, and the game was different. It was much more like going to college hockey, which I'm less of a fan of, because I do like hitting and I like the physical aspect. So I think them adding that to the women's game in the PWHL is gonna help in general. At least I hope. Nothing. I can't deal in absolutes because I don't know. But I'd love to see that league get to 12 soon and have two full 6-team conferences instead of realistically 1 6-team conference. I think that'll be better if you can play 6 more teams. And again, if they want to keep it even, do 3 Canada, 3 US. That's fine. I also like the idea of not attacking the same markets the NHL is in. Like, obviously, you want Boston, you want Minnesota, you want Toronto, you want Ottawa, and Montreal, and then New York. Like, the 6 markets they picked to start, fantastic markets, and can definitely support a women's team. But I think as you start kind of getting to the less traditional hockey markets, like the Californias of the world, don't have a team in LA and Anaheim. Have one or two teams in the state of California, maybe. Go down south, have maybe throw a team in Florida. But again, the hockey market in Florida is pretty, not tapped, but pretty competitive. You have 2 NHL teams, 2 ECHL teams. Like, those are the things the league's going to have to look at as they start expanding. Where are they not going to cannibalize themselves competing with hockey to hockey, right? And I think that'll be something. I am looking forward to seeing, switching gears to the NHL. I'm looking forward to seeing the Dallas-Edmonton series. I think will be pretty good. Unfortunately, Vancouver couldn't get it done. That being said, I think if Vancouver had won, they'd maybe go 5 or 6 games with Dallas, but I think Dallas would ultimately win that series. And I think the Stars will probably win in 6. over Edmonton. I think Dallas is just too deep to not go 6. And then I think the Panthers are going to be kind of a similar beast, and it's really hard. It's really hard to pick against Sergei Bobrovsky. He just is unreal, man.
Can I spin that for a minute?
Yeah, of
So,
course.
like, what if I'm just a Bruins fan who can't get over the fact they ran out of gas after every single goal they scored in every single game.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't discredit Jeremy Swayman at all for how well he was playing.
So that's actually like it strengthens my point of why I think the Florida Panthers are going to be able to out-depth the New York Rangers. I think the Panthers weren't. It wasn't just a chuck. It wasn't just that kind of top line of the Panthers scoring. They were 3-4 lines deep when they were scoring their goals, and just running